Alright. Hey, Gracie, this is your daddy. I am going to be reading you a book I got you. Alright. Alright. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeffrey Jansen. I bought my daughter a book. It's called The Dream Giver for Teens. Okay? It's by Jessica Wilkinson with Bruce Wilkinson. And the reason why I'm reading it on here is I'm going to read a chapter tonight, and then I'll read another chapter tomorrow. You're more than welcome to listen in. And we are reading Dream Giver for Teens. And I'm doing this because I'm also recording it for my daughter. So one day, when she becomes a teenager, I mean, she's 9 years old right now, she'll have me reading this to her. But I'm also going to put a message in it, and I thought I would also share it with you so you understand why I bought her this particular book. There's several books I get her. So the book is called The Dream Giver for Teens, Jessica Wilkinson and Bruce Wilkinson. All right. And we're going to start out with chapter 1. Once I get to it. I probably went past it. I've read the regular one for adults. Okay. And so, anyway, first chapter. The story is about Ernie, a little gray caterpillar. A bug story. Long ago, deep within the jungles of a land far, far away, there lived a massive, ferocious, fire-breathing, human-eating dragon. But this particular story isn't about the dragon, though he does sound pretty impressive. This story is about Ernie, a little gray caterpillar. From the outside, there really didn't appear to be anything special about Ernie. He was an ordinary-looking bug with an ordinary-looking family. They lived in an ordinary house instead of a boring you describing every ordinary detail of their ordinary lives. I'll just tell you that almost everything they had or did or even thought about doing was, I guessed it, ordinary. Ernie is an Ernie and his ordinary family all lived in the big tree on a small island where ordinary caterpillars lived. The island wasn't beautiful, but it was nice enough. The big tree was the only tree on the small island, and it had provided food for all the caterpillars for as long as any of them could remember. The caterpillars' lives completely revolved around the big tree. The summer they spent all their time gathering leaves so they would have enough to eat during the winter, and in the winter they spent most of their time in their homes inside the big tree. The caterpillars had two goals in life: to eat and to get as ridiculously fat as possible. They were also known for their predictability, which the caterpillars prided themselves in. Inside the tree, they had carved out the rather ungainly motto: "It's better to be safe, alive, and comfortable than to be adventurous, dead, and eaten by ants," which definitely isn't comfortable. And that pretty much sums up the attitude of ordinary caterpillars. Each morning, Ernie woke and began gathering his share of leaves for the family. Then he ate, did his chores, ate, went to school for ordinary bugs, ate, came home, ate, did his ordinary homework, ate, and went to bed. Excuse me. Went to bed. Every day was pretty much excuse me. Sorry. For every day was pretty much the same for Ernie, as it was for every other caterpillar he knew on the small island. Sometimes Ernie fat, fuzzy best friend Steve, who was the pride of his family for succeeding so well at two goals of a caterpillar, would come over and do homework with Ernie. But it would be fair to say that life was kind of dull and ordinary. Because you see, no one had ever told Ernie to expect more, and so he didn't. Every day at bug school, the older bugs would teach the younger bugs about the world beyond their island, though none of them had ever been there. Of course, they would show the young bugs pictures of big, scary monsters and tell them of all the dangers lurking outside their small, safe island. And the bugs had learned early not to show curiosity and ask about the outside world. Asking those kind of questions was like singing yourself up for cruel, unusual punishment and was definitely not worth it. If one of them were to let his curiosity show, however, the teachers would inform the bug's parents and set up meetings with even more scary pictures for the bug to look at while his parents sat there wailing. "We're going to lose our baby bug. He's going to be eaten by monsters or die. Our poor baby bug." So the bugs learned not to be curious, and if they were, they learned to ignore their curiosity. A funny thing happened when they ignored their curiosity for a while. They found it no longer bothered them not to know, usually that is. A few years passed, and this little Ernie grew up, which is usually what happens when a few years pass. He graduated from the ordinary bug school at the top of his class and took a job working at the leaf report factory where most ordinary caterpillars worked. Ernie was exactly like all the other bugs and expected to be so for the rest of his short caterpillar life. Then one day, everything changed. Ernie woke up one Monday morning at exactly 6:45, just as he did every morning. Only something inside of him was different. He awoke to a strange stirring in his heart, and Ernie suddenly realized that deep inside he wanted more than his ordinary life. He wanted to do more than submit reports about leaves and eat all day. And for some reason he felt as if he was supposed to be doing more than that. He just didn't know what. Ernie gazed longingly out his window and wondered what life beyond the small island was really like. Glancing over at his clock, he realized he would be late for work if he didn't hurry. He quickly stuffed these strange new feelings away and went to work. All day long, Ernie tried not to think about wanting more or about wanting to be more. He tried to convince himself that his ordinary life was all there was. He even tried to convince himself that he was happy with the way things were, even though he knew he wasn't. Not at all, not even a little. That night, as Ernie drifted off to sleep, he wondered what it was that he was supposed to be doing. Eating and getting fat were fun, but something was definitely missing, something big. When Ernie woke up the next morning, he could take it no longer. He made up his mind to go see the notorious Kronk. Kronk was known all over the island for talking bugs into abdominally the big tree and venting into the wild, unknown lands beyond. Parents feared him and teachers warned their students about him. But Ernie thought that maybe, just maybe, Kronk might be able to help him. Figured out of these strange new feelings, and so Ernie ran off as fast as his little legs would carry him. Kronk lived on the far side of the island among those who were considered bad or unordinary bugs. Ernie had never been to the other side of the island before, but he found his way just fine. All he had to do was follow the signs that said, "This way to the bad and unordinary bugs. We recommend, though, that you turn around and go home." Kronk didn't look half as scary as Ernie expected. In fact, he looked kind of friendly. Kind of. He opened his door wide and invited Ernie into his home. The young caterpillar's face was clearly disturbed as he entered. Kronk had seen this look many times before on the ordinary bugs of the island, especially the caterpillars. Kronk sat Ernie down and told him a story that began, "Not long ago and not far from the island." It was the story of an ordinary caterpillar that turned into a butterfly. Ernie heard about such things, but he had been told by his ordinary friends that only a very special breed of caterpillars ever transformed into butterflies. Was it possible he had been told wrong? Could it be that this was what was missing from his life? Could it be that ordinary caterpillars were created to become more than just ordinary? His heart leapt out of the thought. Ernie returned home that night with a jumble of thoughts racing through his mind. Kronk had told Ernie that he wanted more from life because there was supposed to be more to life. He also said that if Ernie decided to become a butterfly, everything he needed was already inside him. He went to sleep thinking about Kronk's words, and when he woke up, it was there, just as Kronk had described it. Beating inside his heart was the big dream of becoming a butterfly. Somehow, he knew that the dream for more had always been there. He just hadn't looked long enough, but he was looking now and it was amazing. Ernie rushed off to his leaf reporting job to tell Steve all about his new dream. But Steve's reaction was nothing like Ernie expected. Instead of being excited for him, ordinary Steve did something very out of the ordinary. After Ernie described his dream, Steve began to yell at the top of his lungs. You do not have a dream. You can't have a dream. You're just a caterpillar, and if you have a dream, it means that you'll have to leave the island. You will die. Ernie didn't know what to say, but he didn't even have a chance because Steve started shouting and wailing even louder. You don't have a dream. You don't have a dream. No, no, no. As though the dream would go away if he shouted loud enough. Finally, Steve, who wasn't used to a lot of physical activity, got tired of yelling and was quiet. Ernie stayed silent for another moment just to be sure his friend wasn't going to start up again and then asked, What on earth do you mean? If I have a dream, I have to leave the island. Why can't I just stay here and become a butterfly? This is the best thing that has ever happened to me, Steve. I know there was something missing. I just knew it. Steve could take it no longer, and a very upset tone of voice reminded Ernie about the law of the big tree. No caterpillar was allowed to become a butterfly unless he or she left the island. No one really knew why the law existed. Perhaps it was because becoming a butterfly was unpredictable, and a caterpillar was supposed to be predictable. But regardless of the reason, it was the law. Then looking away from Ernie, Steve quietly told him that he too had once dreamed of becoming a butterfly, but decided it was too risky. He told Ernie to do what they had been taught in ordinary bug school. Just ignore the dream like we used to ignore our curiosity. It goes away after a while. And with that, the plump caterpillar turned around and crawled away as graceful as he could, leaving Ernie alone with a broken dream. I wish I could say that Ernie didn't take Steve's advice, but he did. He tried to ignore the dream. He made every effort to kill it, suffocate it, and forget about it. Anything but dream it. Nothing seemed to work, though. So when Ernie finally tired of trying to get rid of it, he thought, maybe he should just try following it. In that moment, it was almost as if his heart sighed with contentment. Things had never felt so right. That day, Ernie quit his ordinary job at the leaf reporting factory. He had told only his parents and Steve about his decision to leave. But because nothing out of the ordinary ever happened at the big tree, the whole island soon found out and came to tell him their opinions, none of which were positive, of course. His father was among those who didn't care for Ernie's new way of thinking. He said, Son, I just don't think you're ready for something like this, and I don't think it's a good idea at all. You weren't made to do big things. It's that simple. Ernie's old teacher, Gertrude, came next. She stood directly in front of him and said, What kind of example are you setting for my students? Didn't you listen when you were warned? Were you about the risk and dangers? We don't do things like this. Ernie, we just don't. Harry, an old schoolmate, gave Ernie an intimidating stare and told him, You're gonna fail. You always failed in things like this. Just don't expect me to feel sorry for you. It seemed to Ernie that every single ordinary bug had come out to give him a different reason not to leave the island. And honestly, they were all pretty good reasons. Ernie didn't say anything at all. He just listened. By the time everyone had talked to Ernie, he had almost decided to never, ever dream again and to give up forever on becoming a butterfly. It just didn't seem worth it, and when he thought about it, the idea of becoming a butterfly was pretty intimidating. It was such a big dream. Suddenly, the crowd parted as a familiar figure slowly made his way through. It was Kronk. I wish I could say that the crowd's parting was a show of respect, but the truth was the ordinary bugs feared him, and backing up was just a normal reaction. Kronk sat down next to Ernie and a quiet voice told him, I know that every one of these ordinary bugs has given you a reason not to pursue your dreams. This reason may seem logical and your dream probably seems impossible and unreachable. But if you forsake this dream, you will forsake the life you know you were meant to live. I know you're afraid. Being comfortable, though, isn't worth it if it means that you have to die inside. Fear is real, yes, but so is the dream. If you don't listen to your heart and follow your dream, you'll always wonder about what could have happened. The only way you will surely fail is if you don't ever try. And with that, Kronk made his way back through the silent crowd and headed home. Ernie let Kronk's words sink in for a few moments while hundreds of beady bug eyes rested on him. He decided that Kronk was right. It wasn't worth giving up his dream just because he was afraid, and so he shouted, "Goodbye!" and turned his back and stunned the crowd. He found a small piece of driftwood on a beach and climbed aboard. When the tide came in, he let it slowly carry him away from the island and toward the unknown. A few hours later, Ernie reached the shore of a new, very unordinary looking place. He was scared and extremely uncomfortable. But right beside that discomfort was his dream, and it was beating so much louder now. He was here to become a butterfly. He was here to fly. Could this really be happening? Ernie walked around until he came upon what looked like a condominium of cocoons. Excitingly, he tried to talk to the caterpillars inside the cocoons, but they couldn't reply. He thought this odd, but then spotted a bug sitting at a desk in front of the nearby tree. "You looking to rent some cocoon space, young bug?" he asked the clerk. Ernie never expected to have to pay someone in order to become a butterfly. He figured it was just supposed to happen naturally. The bug at the desk informed him that not only did he have to pay, but the metamorphosis would also require that he remain in the cocoon for months. And even then, he would have to go to the whole new place in order to get his wings. Ernie had never heard about this before, of course, because no one at home ever spoke of becoming a butterfly. He had not known what to expect, but this definitely wasn't it. Ernie was so disappointed that he began to think about going back home to a small island. At least there he always knew what to expect. The big tree was reliable, and it wasn't scary because they all knew their place and they did the things that were familiar. But then he remembered Kronk's words. If you don't listen to your heart and follow your dream, you'll always wonder about what could have happened. Ernie hoped it would be easier, but he also knew his dream was worth fighting for, and that was exactly what he was determined to do. Ernie got a job doing something he had never done before and began saving up enough money to rent the cocoon space. The job didn't pay much, though, and as the days and weeks passed, Ernie's frustration began to grow. Every morning he thought about giving up, and every night he went to sleep discouraged that he was still a fat caterpillar with a dream. But he kept going until one day he finally earned enough to rent the space. It wasn't an easy task squeezing himself into a small cocoon. It seemed that caterpillars in these parts didn't eat quite as much as they did back home, but he finally got in, and the waiting began. Months went by and the seasons changed. While inside the cocoon, changes were also happening. Then, one spring day, Ernie's cocoon began to break apart. It broke slowly at first, but Ernie quickly became more and more impatient, shaking the whole branch as he fought to free himself from the cocoon. Ernie was more ready than anything to see if it had really worked, and it had. The cocoon broke open wide to reveal that the fat caterpillar had been transformed into a butterfly. Without wings yet, of course. Still, Ernie could almost feel himself flying. But something inside of him had changed too. All the frustration from the waiting and working had been washed away. His dream beat louder than ever, and so he immediately set out for the land where his wings waited for him. Ernie found that although he couldn't fly, already his steps were lighter. A few hours later, Ernie arrived at the gate of the land that the bug behind the desk had described to him. The gate towered high over him and was guarded by giant ants. Ernie became scared again as he looked down and realized he was a lot smaller than he used to be. But he had just had to get his wings. He couldn't give up now. Ernie mustered all the courage he had and said in a loud voice, "Excuse me, but I'm here to get my wings." Several of the ants turned around and stared at him. To get my wings, please?" Ernie said. The ants busted out in laughter at the outspoken butterfly. One of the soldier ants told Ernie there was no way he was getting his wings unless he fought the ant and won. Ernie was outnumbered and outweighed, out everything. "Okay," Ernie said, "I'll fight you." The laughter immediately died away, and the soldier ant glared down at him. Ernie tried to look as though he wasn't afraid, but he knew he wasn't doing a very good job of it. You know what, little butterfly? Normally I'd fight you, but I'm pretty impressed at your courage, so I'm going to let you have your wings without a fight. And with that, the ant tossed Ernie a new pair of wings. Ernie didn't know what to say. He had heard about these ants and knew they never gave up a pair of wings without a fight. Maybe, just maybe, someone was looking out for him. Ernie stared down at the wings and then back up at the ant. And then he looked back at the wings. You'd better get out of here before I change my mind, little butterfly. Ernie realized that he hadn't moved and quickly said a quiet thanks before he turned and walked away from the gate with a pair of wings in his hand. Something he never imagined he would be holding. Something everyone told him he would never be able to get, but he had. He really had. Ernie gently put the wings on his back, and he smiled, and he realized that this was what he had been made for. This was a life he wasn't supposed to wonder about. This was a life he was supposed to live. And with that, Ernie's wings lifted him into the air. The funny thing is, Ernie realized his heart had started flying before his feet had left the ground. Okay, that's the first chapter. Gracie Ann, I'm reading you the first chapter. The second chapter, which I'll read tomorrow. This was a life he was supposed to live. And for everybody else that stay tuned. This is called The Dreamer for Teens. The Dream Giver, the regular Dream Giver, if you'd like, I can start reading chapters of that also. I'm reading this one for my daughter. But it's basically, when you go out there, there's going to be a lot of naysayers. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you, including your family and your friends, you can't do something. Not because they don't love you, but because they do. They just want you to be safe. And in life, we have to remember what is safe and what is not safe. And we have to take those risks. We have to take a chance on things we've never taken a chance on before. We have to be more today than who we were yesterday. And every time we do something, there's always going to be negative people telling us we can't. There's always going to be that person telling you, no, get back to the hive. No, you can't do it. No, because you're going to get killed. You know, I mean, how many times did our mom and dad say, you know, if we do something, man, you're going to kill yourself doing that. But we don't learn without taking a chance and without venturing out. And this is stuff I myself have to learn. Gracie, your daddy's not the greatest in the world. I've got to learn every single day to overcome my fears like everybody else. But if we sit there and we let those fears get to us, we're going to be trapped within one spot. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to get on and I'm going to read the regular chapter. This is for Gracie. This is for my daughter. And it's for when she becomes a teenager. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is I'm preparing her for the future. And every one of you guys out there matters, and my little girl matters too. And so I'm gonna get off here. Then I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna come back on for daily reflections. I'll post that up there so everybody knows what it is. And if you want your kids to listen to that, go right ahead. So we got a couple more chapters, which I will read. And as we go along, I'll do it tomorrow night, okay? So anyway, I hope to hear from you guys. We're going to do daily reflections here in just a second. I'm going to stop everything.